authority, they have influence, and they have a lot of knowledge about the business itself. So I love how you touched on, the organizational change management and the change management pieces as well, which is so important when you're going through an acquisition like you all did. So kudos to you for that. Of course you did, because you're left brain, so why wouldn't you? But yeah, kudos to that, because a lot of times people forget about that. I've seen many organizations forget about that. Like over time, you have to slowly start adopting, the new processes
Yes.
into the business, and not let 20 years go by and you're like, wait a minute, like we haven't done anything. So I'm glad you
Yeah.
guys are thinking that way.
Well, and we started adopting new principles probably midway this year. So just giving us that time to, one,
Yeah.
transition everything, two, everyone kind of go through that honeymoon phase. And if you understand that whether you're dating, a new job, a new
Hmm.
friend, whatever, there's that honeymoon phase. And then there's that real phase where you really find out about people, because something's going to happen during the time together. And we finally got to the place of, okay, there's some changes that we need to make. There are a few issues that are here. There nothing major issues, but things that can become major if we don't address them now, right? And so as we found those things, I am one that don't believe in the elephant staying in the room. It's just, he cannot stay. And so we're going to find ways to kind of start talking about the elephant, addressing the elephant, and turning that elephant around and walking him out of the room, sometimes slowly, sometimes immediately, depending on, the level of what we're dealing with. And so we've made some changes this year, and we've always had their input inside of a lot of those changes. I try to have some empathy, which is something that came out of COVID a lot more, right? There's this thing of balancing economics and empathy. When you own a business, you are definitely looking at the bottom line. You're definitely looking at where you're going. You're definitely looking at what your team is doing and producing, and the efficiency of all those things and what's happening. But there's also an empathy that has to happen. And so we've implemented some things. Well, there have always been my local CFO, but we implemented them into the new company. And by the way, Jennifer, we kept the name of the company because it was already 20 years in the community. Why would I get rid of a name that everyone knows and everyone
Right.
associates with,
Right.
right? So we deviated, which was totally fine with us. We have no problem with that. We know who we are. And but to be able to not confuse the community, and they already got confusion because they know new owners came in. And so that's a disruption already. So we are always looking at our clients as well. So you've got your internal staff, you've got your external clients and community, and then you have what you're transitioning over. The company as it was is not going to be now, because it's a disruption to everyone in that way. And so keeping as much the same as possible as you make that transition, as you make that turn, and then changing things again immediately when it needs to be, or slowly if you can, allows for everyone to kind of get acclimated and feel comfortable with everything. And again, it depends on what kind of acquisition that you're going through. But it was now that we've decided, okay, I'm moving everyone. So people have changed offices, some not at their request, as in the beginning, but because of some things that we saw, the way we're growing, some of the departments that we're adding in, we needed to just change things around. We're adopting a little bit more.
Welcome to the Analytical Rewired. I am your host, Jennifer White, CEO of the MJW Group. And today I have the long-awaited guest of my dreams, Cherelle James. Cherelle James, how are you?
Hey, I am doing well. I hope you are.
Absolutely, I sure am. I'm excited to have Cherelle on the podcast today because she can definitely talk all about rewiring when it comes to acquisitions. She recently experienced that, and I would like for her to talk through her journey of acquiring another company. So Cherelle, with that in mind, why don't you give a little background about yourself and tell the audience all about who you are?
Yeah, so I am super excited. And you talked about long awaited. Let me just tell you, I was just as excited in our long awaiting, more so on my side probably than your side of getting us together, because I love when we get together and it's like a meeting of the minds. But my name is Cherelle James, for those that don't know me and the listeners out there. I am the co-founder and CEO of My Local CFO, CFO standing for Chief Financial Officer. And with that being said, we've been in business for a little over 12 years, and we decided, actually went through an acquisition in 2022. We decided it probably 2 or 3 years before then that we're going to acquire. And I'm sure we're going to get in that and talk about that a little bit more,
Mhm.
but actually went through with an acquisition of acquiring an accounting and tax firm in 2022, which was exciting.
Awesome, awesome. So Cherelle, how long have you been in business now?
Yeah, so we've been in business a little over 12 years. So September made 12 years for us. And I think that we looked around the 9, 10 year mark. We always, and when I say we, I'm in business with my husband. So let me just make sure I say that first. I'm in business with my husband. And it's great. It's one of those things of either you can or you can't. There's no middle road. And we've been married for 19 and business for 12 at this point. And I don't know what we were thinking 7 years into our marriage, but hey, it happened and we did it. And we got around the 9 to 10 year mark, and we're kind of analyzing the business of where it was, where we wanted to go, and kind of what were those pains that were happening inside our business to kind of stunt our growth. And that's kind of when we started looking at some other options than just growing naturally in the way that you force growth, more clients, hire more staff, more clients type thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Love it. A similar story to my husband and I guess we waited 8 years before we went in business. So yeah, pretty close there. I don't know what we were thinking either. I still don't know what we're thinking. I don't know.
Listen, you're a little bit smarter than me, because at least you waited an extra year to do it. But it has been, I'll tell you this, and I know we're talking about acquisitions today, but just a really quick nugget of being in business with your spouse. It has allowed me to know all of him and him to know all of me, right? Because it's usually that work spouse and then their home spouse. And when you work together, guess what? When you leave the office, you're pulling up in the same driveway, not different driveways. So you get to really know the whole person. And I think for me, that has been a jewel for me to know all of my husband. And I think that's what made us last as long as we have in marriage and in business.
Love it. Love it. So you are located in North Carolina.
Yes.
And how has your business been able to expand not only in North Carolina, but domestically and
Yeah.
globally?
So for the in the beginning of our business, when we decided to build it, it was never meant just for us. Like our mind and the way our logo, the way we market, the things that we do, the services that we offer, we're always in mind of this is something that's bigger than us, and we're the caretakers of it, kind of creators and caretakers, but it's really for other people who want to be able to plug in, which is kind of where we're getting to now, and one of the reasons why the acquisition had to happen. But we started in North Carolina, and we started with family and friends telling, I think one of our first clients was a caterer for my husband's cousin's surprise birthday party. And they found out that we were in business, and just talking to the caterer, and it was their caterer that they use for a lot of things. And they were like, you guys need to talk. And she stayed with us for 4 or 5 years. I mean, just an amazing, amazing client that we had until she decided that she was no longer going to be in business. She'd been in business for years. But that's kind of how we started. It was one of those things of we got an idea. We think we can solve a problem that we see in just our community. So for us, we focus on small and medium-sized businesses. Not that we don't work with big business or corporations, but we really focus on small and medium-sized because that's where you have the owner doing everything. And
Mhm.
truly, they don't have anyone from a financial standpoint that's working with them or helping them. And if you think about corporations, they've got a CEO and a CFO, right? That kind of complete the company at the top levels. And so we wanted to come and walk beside some of the amazing, amazing companies that we saw in our communities, but we saw them closing. We saw them closing or struggling. And the one thing I say is you don't close the doors because clients aren't coming in. You close the doors when you have no more money. And not just money in the business, no more money in your pockets, no more money in your family pockets. You know, you've just drained everything and you finally have to close the doors. And we didn't want people to get to that point just because they didn't understand the back end of business. Everybody didn't go to business school. And so that's kind of how we started. Me and my husband realized that early on in our marriage and just the jobs that we had and helping each other out in different projects, we realized that we work very well together and we produce great things. And so that's kind of where it started from. And then acquiring the clients was word of mouth for at least the first 5 to 6 years. I mean, we were so busy, word of mouth just worked for us. I mean,
Okay, awesome. I love that backstory about how well you and your husband work together, because it's really, I hear a lot of people tell me all the time, I don't know how you do it. And I joke and I'm like, I don't know either. But
right.
you're right. You figure things out, and it allows you to learn more about that individual because you're with them all day, all day long. And sometimes it's hard to cut off the business. Like, you have all these ideas, right? Because we're entrepreneurs, and it's like the right side of our brain is just going all day, and it's like, time to cut it off. But yeah,
Yeah.
I love that backstory there. So hopefully the audience can see now why I love Cherelle. We met, it's only been 2 years, but I
It
feel like
seems a
I've
lot
known you a long
longer.
time. Yeah, it's only been 2 years. And I think right when we met, I just kind of fell in love. I was like, I love her. Oh my gosh. So yeah, talk about the journey for the last 2 years, right? Because we were
Yeah.
coming out of COVID, kind of, sort of, and we were going through a program where we met.
Yes.
And after that program, there was lots of blossoming. So talk about that.
There was. So let me just say this first. It was love at first sight, I think, for you and for me, right? Because Jennifer is just a wonderful, genuine person, and you just cannot not love Jennifer. That's all I've got to say about that.
Oh.
And so we both were in the Goldman Sachs 10,000 small business program together, which I call an MBA for your business. So it teaches you really how to work on your business and not in your business, which is a big issue for business owners, right? We always are working inside of it and not on it. And so you don't get the growth that you need to get because you're not working on it. And it was a rigorous, I think the whole fall, right? August through December, we graduated in
Yeah.
December, met each other in New York, hung out in New York a little bit, and then came back, and it was rubber to the road of, okay, you've got a plan, you got things happening. But one of the things, and I think this is another reason why me and Jennifer fell in love with each other, is because number one, we're both in North Carolina. We're not in the same city, but we're not far from each other. We're just about 2 hours from each other. And number two, going through the program, you know, when you go through something with somebody, there's a bond there that other people don't understand because they've not been through that process that you've been through. And so we've been accountability partners in a lot of ways to each other, of just making sure good, bad, and ugly. And I think I can say that good, bad, ugly, and indifferent, right? It doesn't matter. We can be honest with each other and just bring it to the table and then help each other work through it. And so that kind of was how we met 2 years ago. I was at that point, like I said, I kind of started 9 to 10 years ago. Me and my husband, who's Derek, I won't just call him my husband. He has a name. His name is Derek. Um, we were looking at, okay, what is the bane of our existence? Like every year we do this kind of what's happening in the business, how do we grow, all of this stuff. And we realize we keep coming to the same thing for the last 9 to 10 years. And that was, we were not an accounting firm. We were not a tax firm. We are a CFO firm. And that was what we did 100%. But what we realized is a lot of our clients needed accounting and needed tax. And so we partnered with a lot of accounting firms to do the accounting, because you can't analyze numbers if there are no numbers to analyze and they
Right.
haven't been organized. And so with that being said, we had great accounting firms that we work with, but their timelines weren't our timelines. And our clients weren't paying us to keep their books in order. They were paying us to analyze and help them strategize and move forward and grow and scale. And so we just sat and said, what would we tell our clients to do at this point in our life? So we were growing, we were making profit, we were over 6-figure mark, that type of thing was happening. So we had a pretty good business, but we saw where we were hitting a ceiling because of not being able to control what was happening with our clients' books in a lot of ways. And so what would I tell my client? We have this thing we call organized money. And I hope it's okay, Jennifer, for me to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have what we call our success formula, which is organized money. And it's number one, a business being able to pay for itself. This is where we look at the break even. Are you breaking even? Are you sustainable? And can you forecast income forward? So those are kind of the three things that there's a lot that goes into that. I'm not going that on here, but those are the three big things that we're looking at, of a company. The second one, because we're working with small business, is a business to be able to pay its owner, not as the employee or the technical skill, but as the owner of the company, because we get so many times owners saying, I don't know how to pay myself. So not in the skill or the service or product that you offer, but just as the owner, being able to pay yourself. The third thing is strategically save. Now, the financial field is called cash reserves. But we say strategically save because we're not just looking to put money up for a rainy day. We're also looking to strategize forward, that forecasting of where are we going and how are we getting there, and then making sure we're putting aside things, money and resources to get us there.
Right.
And then the last thing is a business needs to be able to invest. Now, investing at the bare minimum level is investing in the foundation, in the structure, support that you may need. It could be insurance for employees that you have, just foundational things that the systems and processes is part of that investing in, right? But now this success formula is cyclical, meaning those four things go deeper and deeper and deeper. And as they go deeper, you add another product or service, you need to make sure that your break even is, what your break even is, or you add more assets on, you need to save more and you want to pay yourself more, right? If you're growing, you should be able to get a larger paycheck. And then the investing side becomes into what we're talking about today. How do I make my money work for me? That's what systems and processes do for you. That's what support does for you, right? It helps your money work for you. It's an efficiency model, because when we talk about profitability, different than profit, profitability includes efficiency. And so for you to be sustainable and profitable, you've got to be able to have investments inside of your company. And so support, process, systems. But now we get to, maybe I want to invest in real estate. I'm renting a place, and instead of renting, now I'm going to buy a place, and now I can rent out sections of that place. So it's my money working for me, right? Not just buying a place just to say I bought a place, but investing in a different way so your money can work for you. That's where we get to mergers and acquisitions. So mergers and acquisitions doesn't start at the beginning. It's one of those things that you can grow to because you've got cash reserves now, right? I've got to have money aside to be able to put into whatever it is that I'm investing in. I can't invest if I have no money. Then how do I invest? And so that's kind of what we looked at. And then we looked at where we were, taking that same success formula. We use it for us as we use it for our clients to know where they are and where we're starting with them, but also for ourselves, for my local CFO, where are we in this process? And what's next? And so the question was, well, what would I tell my client to do? I wouldn't tell my client to go and start an accounting firm. That's not the business that they're in. I'm in the CFO business. So how do I leverage what I have? The name that we have, the dollars and reserves that we've built, the relationships and network that we have, which are resources, to continue to grow and to grow at a rapid rate. And that was to acquire an accounting firm. And we have prerequisites for that. But that was to acquire an accounting firm because we're at that place where I can acquire rather than trying to start it from scratch. hire an accountant, try to figure out all these clients I got to make sure so I can pay them. No, I'm going to I acquire today, tomorrow, everything that someone else has built, I get that money tomorrow. Once I sign on the dotted line and I'm up and running, with what I need to do. So that's kind of how we got to the acquisition stage, and how we kind of look at where companies are, and where do you need to be next?
Bars, bars, bars. So many bars dropped. I mean, goodness. Hopefully y'all can see why we gel. Cherelle mentioned organized money, right? Forecasting for the future. She also talked about building that efficiency, right? Systems and processes allow you to do that. It allows you to scale, allows you to do more, hopefully with less, keep more money in your pockets, generate more profit. I love it. I love everything. You should definitely wrap that up and put it in a book or something, because
Listen, I'm working on it. I
I
got to
love,
find the time, but I'm working on it.
but yes, you're right. You're exactly right. And I think sometimes as business owners, we get in the thick of just I'm gonna refer to Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth Revisited, where he talks about we become technicians, like you said, like you're just paying yourself for your skill. You're not
Yeah.
paying yourself for the value that you bring as being the business owner. We get so caught up in doing things and just hustling and grinding that we lose sight of, hey, I've actually built a business. And that is a huge deal, right? You're bringing on clients, you're maintaining and keeping the existing clients happy. You start to bring on staff, you got to keep them happy. You're like you said, as you go deeper, right, to keep your employees happy, you're looking at 401k, you're looking at short-term disability, long-term disability, life insurance, and having all these other things available to keep those employees. As a small business, that's not easy to do. Trust me, I did that last year, and it was not easy to do. But now I'm better equipped to handle benefits and things like that. But yeah, paying yourself. A lot of times, I think we forget as business owners what that means, because we will sacrifice and sacrifice a lot for our company, the team, and at the end of the day, you gotta you need to be happy with what you're doing, right? Because you don't want to create another job for yourself. We didn't start business to create another job for ourselves. So
You know,
there is a fine line where you kind of gotta like realize that and kind of course correct before you get in too deep.
I think it's creating jobs for ourselves is number one, and number two, burnout.
Yeah.
Because you're not getting any rewards from it, and you're just constantly pouring in, pouring in, pouring in, but you're sacrificing, right? Your family sacrificing, you're sacrificing, you're barely living. That is not what a business owner should be doing. And I know a lot of people
Yeah.
teach that in that way. There's a season, if you're getting started and things of that nature, right? That
Yeah.
sacrifice comes in. But at some point in your business, you should not be 20 years in, you should not be 10 years in and still feel like it's when you started. Then that means that there's something missing there. There's something not right. And then we have people that get burnt out, great businesses, great solutions for the world, and they get burnt out because they're not refilling what they need to refill, whether it's money, whether it's resources, whether it's time, whatever it is that they need, they're not getting those things back in return because, like you said, they've built a job and not a business.
Right. Bars again. Whew, man, we could talk about that all day.
Listen.
But I want to get deeper into the acquisition, right? So you talked about how you guys were building a reserve, how you came to your strategic planning, right? Towards the end of the year, it was like, okay, we're here again. What are we going to look at or do differently for the next year, right? So you kind of married those two things up. An acquisition thought seed was nurtured, and you all ended up acquiring another business. How did you go about even finding that bit once you knew accounting? accounting firm, how did you even go about finding an accounting firm that was available for sale?
This is so shameful. And people ask me this as if there's this eloquent answer to how I found it, and they're ready with their paper and their pen and notes. I Googled.
Oh my
I Googled accounting firms near me for sale. Now, let me just say this though. This is where the pen and the paper does come in. I had me and my husband sat down and we had prerequisites of what we wanted from the firm. So we were
God.
very clear about what we were looking for. So let me be just, I want to be plain about it. So then I could go Google, right? I could go Google kind of what's happening, what's near me. And what it did was it brought up several different sites that were like brokers for selling and buying accounting firms. And
Okay.
so then I was able to be directed to those sites. And then inside of those sites, I was able to kind of look, and they give you a good synopsis or summary of what the firm is and kind of what's it bringing in and the percentage of whatever the services are. And so we were able to kind of drill down inside of that. And I'm going to tell you, the first one that we was like, oh, this is a great one. It's not far from the house. You know, they have everything. We were looking for a staff that was already in place. I know some people are maybe not looking for a staff in place, but we were looking for staff. I remember, I told you this was not the business. I did not want to be in the accounting business where I have to do it from scratch. I
Right.
wanted something up and running with people already kind of working and knowing what they were doing. So we needed a staff. We needed the owner to not be in the business. We wanted them to almost be non-existent in the business because that's what we knew for us. We wanted more of a plug and play model. Didn't say that we're never going to be there. I think that's a disaster, especially acquiring and transitioning. You got to be there. But I didn't want an owner that was 100% there all the time, because that meant that they had a job and not a business. And so we wanted to make sure that the employees did not include the owner. And if it did, it was a minimal amount of time. And so those are some of the things that we look for. Where the accounting firm was, we didn't care. It could be anywhere in the country because we have clients across the US. And so it didn't matter to us where they were, where the accounting firm was. We would figure it out from there as we were looking. And we found one, like I said, that was close. And we're like, yes. And so we went to put in a offer, because you have to sign up and say, hey, I'm interested to buy this business. And letter of interest is what it's called. And they already had one person in front of us. So we were like, you know what? We're still going to put in the letter of interest, because who knows, that deal could fall flat. And if it does, we're next in line. Well, the deal did not fall flat. And we didn't get the business. So about 2 months later, we're still looking. And we found one that just looked perfect for us. And believe it or not, I put in a lot of requests to brokers, and very few brokers got back to me. That was very interesting to me, that like very few, did the next step of, hey, yeah, you submit a letter of interest, all of that stuff. Very few, but this broker did. And it was an hour and a half from where we are. So we live in Durham, North Carolina, and our accounting firm is in Southern Pines, which is a really nice second home type area, golf and equestrian area. So a really nice area. And the accounting firm had been 20 years, been there for 20 years plus, and had a great name in the community. So it started checking off our lists. It had a staff. The owner was semi-absent. It was just all those things started checking off our list. And we're like, well, let's put in a letter of interest. And then we went down and met with the owner and her husband. And we, again, instant fall in love. Like, we fell in love with each other instantaneously. And they loved what we were doing. She had been in that market for over 20 years, but she really didn't do marketing. She didn't do a whole lot of stuff, and really sustained and built this wonderful business with great systems and processes in place, and great employees. And so adding on to what we do, which is the CFO side, she saw that as a perfect match for the business being able to grow. And we saw it as a perfect match for what she had built already. And so it was just complementing each other. And then from there, we started the process.
Wow. I can't believe, well, I do. The brokers didn't respond to you. You would think, like, hey, we're ready to buy. You can make a percentage. My hand was about to go up here. The little Zoom hand.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm surprised that they didn't. I'm not shocked though, because in this
Yeah.
day and age, it's like we put these automations in place, and I think sometimes people forget that we put these automations and things in place because they have to be maintained, they have to be validated and verified. So I don't know. It could have been something wrong with the linkages and their emailing systems, but I'm just shocked that
I,
you know people didn't
I would
respond.
tell you this, Jennifer, that they didn't respond. And I'll tell you this, I still get mails from them now of accounting firms for sale from people who did not respond at all, but I'm on
Yeah.
their mailing list.
Yep. Exactly. That's what I said. There was something, a missing link in the email automation system, but that's okay. You found who you needed to find. And now that you are, has it been like what, a year and a half, 2 years almost?
Oh my gosh. So that was August 2021, the same time we started the Goldman Sachs program. I started this and I closed February 14th. It was my Valentine's gift. 2022. Then my husband told me I couldn't buy anything else for a year.
Of course not. Oh,
And
boy.
so, but we were hoping to close in December. And I think that this is something that I definitely will be a good place to say this. We were hoping to close in December, just understanding timelines with accounting and finance and the different things that happen and the end of the year and closings and things. And we were hoping to close by the end of the year. Remember, we started this in August. So I would tell anybody that just like buying anything else, everything, if you think it's going to take 45 days, it's probably going to take 3 times as much. If you think it's going to take
Mhm.
30 days, it's going to take 3 times as much plus, right? And so it took a lot longer than what we originally thought it was going to take. And so we just knew we were going to close. Luckily, we had great, again, I told you we fell in love at the beginning. And so they were gracious to hold off and extend. We had to extend some contracts. We had to do a whole bunch of different things. Had nothing to do with me or them. It was just kind of looking at your lending and your banks and the
Right.
different things that you were
Right.
going through and their process. And there were some things that happened with our banker personally that allowed him to be out of the office for a while. And that meant our stuff stopped. And, just kind of sat for a while. And so it delayed the process
Mm-hmm.
for us. So I would tell someone that when you're looking at an acquisition or you're looking at the process or acquiring anything, you want to make sure that you have more reserves than you need,
Mm-hmm.
because during the process, it was a 45-day delay that we had. That's a long time for a business. That could have put a business out of business, right? If you didn't have the right reserves and you've got to maintain a certain level while you're going through, and there's certain money you've got to put up, for the acquisition and things of that nature. So we had great, the sellers were really great and gracious. At one point, I was like, every time I talk to them, I'm moving the date, and I felt bad about it. But we were very transparent with each other from the beginning. We were very honest with each other. The
Mm-hmm.
broker was amazing. She was an absolutely amazing broker. And I think the relationship became one of the things that's unheard of is you usually the buy and seller never talk, right? You talk through the broker.
Yeah.
But because of some of the dynamics that happened during our acquisition that were a little uncommon, and because of transparency and just the honesty that we had with each other, it got to a point where the broker was okay for us to have some conversations, around her.
Wow.
I'm scared to do another acquisition. Like, I have an acquisition bug at this point in my life because it was amazing. And we can talk about a little bit more why that was amazing. But I'm scared because I don't know if I would meet another seller, another broker. Uh,
Ugh.
you know, and I say that, but then I say, hey, I'm a child of God.
Right.
So with that being said, I've got favor on my life. And so I'm a believer. So I've got favor on my life as well. And we are looking at acquiring again in the next 2 years or so, not right away, because we're still transitioning, not right away, but It was something. It was something. And so it's not just about looking and saying, oh, this is a perfect fit, but having the right seller, having the right broker. And we didn't have a broker on our side,
Mm,
which I would not necessarily recommend to someone going through an acquisition the first time. But let me tell you what we did have. When I talk about knowing your resources, even outside of money, we had a friend who's a broker. We had a tax attorney that's a friend. We had a CPA that's a friend. And so we had a lot of friends in our inner circle that we were able to walk things through. And then
mhm,
we knew the numbers and understood certain things as well. But just because we can do it didn't mean that we wanted to do it by ourselves. I think that's a fool to think that I understand everything and do it myself. And so we were able to pull in our network, who was happy to help us, and happy to be there for us, just to run things by. Not they weren't doing any work or anything like that, but just a question here or a question there, they were there for, and we are so grateful for them. Even today, we're still grateful for them.
mm. Love it, love it. Yes, I definitely love about leaning on the resources that you have, or somebody else can introduce you to another resource, right, that they know of. So what I'm hearing is don't be afraid to ask for help if you need help, because this process, it sounds similar to buying a home. Like when you were describing it, because
Yeah.
we built our home, and I can't tell you how many times we got pushed back. So
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's how it felt. But yeah, definitely lean on the resources that you have. I love that. And I love the call outs about the whole process and you going through it. And thanks for being transparent about that and being honest about, some things you would do differently the next time. But I think you are better equipped, right?
Yes.
You have more knowledge, you have investment in to the process to think about other things. For instance, like, I'm an operationally minded person. So I would be asking about the systems that people have, the technology that they have. How old is this technology? How is it being maintained? Who has the knowledge transfer in the organization that I'm getting ready to acquire that, if the owner goes away tomorrow, because not all owners, when you acquire, like they stay on for a period of
Right.
time. Some
Right.
are gone like right away. So how do you get the knowledge transfer? Just certain nuances around that. Talk about that and how that unraveled right after the fact.
You hit the nail on the head. This was in the beginning, before we even said, okay, we'll buy the company. We were having those kind of conversations,
Mhm.
right? So I need to understand, because I had a checklist and there were certain things that I
Of
needed
course you
to make
did.
sure I could check. Now we could be flexible, right? I'm not saying the checklist was a hard fast, but there were
Yeah,
certain things on there that needed to be known. So we knew, okay, is this something that we're going to have to deal with when we come in, or something that is already set? And so systems and processes, let me just say, shout out to Miss Pat Shinkle. May she rest in peace. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But shout out to her, because the process and systems that she had in place were second to none. And there was nothing coming in that we needed to change. We literally were able to kind of let things ride for a year and really observe. And I believe, as a leader coming in, you don't want to just come in and start making drastic changes. You want to
absolutely.
observe first. And so I came in, and her employees, the way she just had the knack for employees, all of them were amazing, absolutely amazing. And the processes and systems were amazing. We walked in, and we also kind of acquired the building as well. So when we walked in, I tell people this all the time. If you left out your house today, just say exactly how it is. I don't care what piece of paper is on the floor, what clothing is wherever, just exactly the food on the counter, just you walked out right where you are now. And then somebody walked in, and instantly 100% of that was theirs. That's exactly what happened in this particular acquisition. I know that there's different types of acquisitions, but in this acquisition, that's exactly what happened, because the owner was sick. She was in the hospital. We closed in the hospital
Mm.
as she was recovering. We closed right there in the hospital, and had to have a notary come up to the hospital and everything to close. So she never got the chance to be that present owner passing the torch, so to speak.
Right.
It started with us just walking in. Whatever the lint ball was, the lint ball was, whatever was done, or that type of thing. It was just that. And so walking in and meeting the employees, they didn't know. She didn't let anyone know probably until a week before we closed.
Oh,
So the
wow.
employees had no idea. Everything is just moving the way that it always moved. Tomorrow's going to be the same. Next week's going to be the same. Next month is going to be the same, because this is always how it's been for 20 plus years. And we walked in, and I had a meeting with them. We sat around, had organized to meet them the next morning, and was in what would be my office, was originally, the seller's office at that time. And we sat in a circle, and I said, listen, I'm not looking to drastically change anything for the next year, because I already knew everything ran fairly well. But if you want to change anything, then now is the time, to talk about those changes and maybe make those changes, because I want the employees to have just as much buy-in as I had into the company, and let them know that the new owners coming in care just as much about them as the old owner who's no longer there. I knew I had a good team when I had 2 requests, Jennifer. Those 2 requests. The first one was, can I just dye my hair in the back but underneath? So you won't see it, but I just want to dye it in the back underneath. So I made up the policy right then for them. I said, listen, I don't care what you do, as long as you're nice, neat, clean, and professional. If you hit those things, you do whatever you want to do, right? As nice, neat, clean, and professional. That's all I'm asking for. So if you want to dye your hair in the back and underneath, then do whatever you want to do. The second thing I was asked was, can I move my office from the back to the front so I can be closer to the front desk to answer when clients come in? Can I move my office to be closer to assist clients? Again, if you want to move your office to the front to be close to clients, go for it, And those were the 2 requests that I had. And then probably midway into the first year, I walked in the office with a pair of jeans. It was Friday, had on a pair of jeans and some heels, and and a little blazer. And they looked at me and they were like, can we wear jeans? And I was like, I'm in jeans. What do you mean? You can wear jeans. And they said, but you're the owner. You can do whatever. And the light bulb went off, like, duh. Okay. And I was like, again, what's the rule? I went back to the rule I said the first day: neat, clean, professional, right? As long as you're neat, clean, and professional, which meant no holes in jeans, just certain things that you're not going to do in the office. But if you want to wear jeans on Friday, have at it. And so they have enjoyed some flexibility, a lot of flexibility that I don't think they had before. And I don't mean that in a good way or a bad way. I just mean that in their transition, right? Because it wasn't just about my transition. It also was their transition. To be successful for the whole company to transition, the employees have to be comfortable, and you've got to let them know that you care about them no differently. They're not going anywhere. I didn't change pay structure. I didn't change anything. Which lends me to, when we talk about systems, processes, and what's in place, what's not, a couple of things. Number one, I had asked beforehand, have you identified a lead for the office? There was a lead already identified. And then when we came in and talking to the employees, they each identified the same person that should be lead. So that it was synergy all the way across. Everyone already knew the systems and processes that were in place. There were some new things that, of course, the owner did getting ready for us that I wish she had not have done. And we had to undo some systems and processes that just was like, it sounded good, and maybe that's what people thought you should do, but it didn't integrate well with who we were and some of the systems and processes that we had already. And so some of those things quickly got done in December and undone in February, but they weren't big things. So that was okay. I'm just going to tell you this, and then I'll stop here and let you ask me a question, because I could talk. Couple of things. I didn't change pay dates because I wanted them to understand that there was already a disruption in the pattern, being that there was a new owner. You had to get used to a new ideas, new missions, new visions. new way, new attitudes, right? Coming in, new moods. And then it wasn't just one owner, you had two. Because it's me and my husband, and they weren't used to having a male in the office. The all female office wasn't used to having a male in the office,
Oh.
but they love it. They absolutely, I think they treat him better than me, but that's a whole nother podcast. I get jealous. It's a whole nother podcast. But it was things that certain things that I stopped was they ate at their desk. You're going to take a break. So I did a lot of things. The small changes that I made were changes to benefit them, give them a little bit more flexibility, but also benefit their health, their well-being, and making sure that, yeah, we're going to work and we've got, performance goals to meet, things of that nature, but we care about you as a person first. Then we care about the work. And I think that's a not a new philosophy, but a philosophy that a lot of people don't acquire as they go and work for someone, or new owners come in that way.
Lots of bars, all in that. I love how you touched on the organizational change management, right? With the dress code policies, or taking breaks, making sure people are taking time to deflate from work for a little bit, come back. And I also like how you make sure you guys touched on the change management, right? With not necessarily changing any of the business processes that were already in place, like payroll dates, any of the technology that you guys were utilizing currently, but taking time to first observe and see what's going on. I like how you mentioned about the leader, and there was synergy with what the previous owner noted and what the team was saying as well, because we over here at the MJW Group, we believe leaders are chosen by their peers as well.
Yeah.
And they are. Most of the time, there's going to be one or two people that bubble up to the surface, and regardless of how everyone feels about it, it is what it is. That person just genuinely, they're the leader. They are.
Yeah.
People listen to them. They have authority. They have influence, and they have a lot of knowledge about the business itself. So I love how you touched on, the organizational change management and the change management pieces as well, which is so important when you're going through an acquisition like you all did. So kudos to you for that. Of course you did, because you're left brain. So why wouldn't you? But yeah, kudos to that, because a lot of times people forget about that. I've seen many organizations forget about that. Like over time, you have to slowly start adopting, the new processes into the business, and not let 20 years go by and you're like, wait a minute, like we haven't done anything. So I'm glad you guys are thinking that way.
Well, and we started adopting new principles probably midway this year. So just giving us that time to, one, transition everything, two, everyone kind of go through that honeymoon phase. And if you understand that whether you're dating, a new job, a new friend, whatever, there's that honeymoon phase. And then there's that real phase where you really find out about people, because something's going to happen during the time together. And we finally got to the place of, okay, there's some changes that we need to make. There are a few issues that are here. There nothing major issues, but things that can become major if we don't address them now, right? And so as we found those things, I am one that don't believe in the elephant staying in the room. It's just, he cannot stay. And so we're going to find ways to kind of start talking about the elephant, addressing the elephant, and turning that elephant around and walking him out of the room, sometimes slowly, sometimes immediately, depending on, the level of what we're dealing with. And so we've made some changes this year, and we've always had their input inside of a lot of those changes. I try to have some empathy, which is something that came out of COVID a lot more, right? There's this thing of balancing economics and empathy. When you own a business, you are definitely looking at the bottom line. You're definitely looking at where you're going. You're definitely looking at what your team is doing and producing, and the efficiency of all those things and what's happening. but there's also an empathy that has to happen. And so we've implemented some things. Well, they've always been my local CFO, but we implemented them into the new company. And by the way, Jennifer, we kept the name of the company because it was already 20 years in the community. Why would I get rid of a name that everyone knows and everyone
Right.
associates with,
Right.
right? So we DBA'd it, which was totally fine with us. We have no problem with that. We know who we are. And but to be able to not confuse the community, and they already got confusion because they know new owners came in. And so that's a disruption already. So we're always looking at our clients as well. So you've got your internal staff, you've got your external clients and community, and then you have what you're transitioning over. You know, the company as it was is not going to be now because it's a disruption to everyone in that way. And so keeping as much the same as possible as you make that transition, as you make that turn, and then changing things again immediately when it needs to be, or slowly if you can, allows for everyone to kind of get acclimated and feel comfortable with everything. And again, it depends on what kind of acquisition that you're going through. But it was now that we've decided, okay, I'm moving everyone. So people have changed offices, some not at their request, as in the beginning, but because of some things that we saw, the way we're growing, some of the departments that we're adding in, we needed to just change things around. We're adopting a little bit more of their work style, or the way they're used to working with clients versus our philosophy of working with clients. We've been training them for the last year, but now we're actually implementing, okay, these are some things that you've got to do now, and think
Mm-hmm.
different in professional development that they weren't used to having, on the level and scale that we do professional development, and making sure. And then our company likes to stay at the cutting edge of what's happening in the industry. We don't want to be behind. So inside of that, we wanted to make sure that they understood. And we went from a place where it wasn't a lot of technology to bringing in a lot of technology. So there's been those transition and changes along the way, and we try to make them as seamless as possible. But at the same time, it's not a question of you can or you can't. It's this is where we're going, and this is what the company is. And
Yes.
so that empathy of how far you want to grow with us, and how do you want to grow, and empathy of just personal, of understanding personally what's happening and dynamics of that. We had several deaths during our first year.
Mm.
We had children deaths. We had the past owner to die. That was like a mom to a lot of the employees, and good friends. We had pets to die that were like family members. We just had a lot of death in the first year, starting with the acquisition, because for them that was a death and a birth. And
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that, we made sure from an empathy level that we brought in counseling, that we had someone that they could talk to, that we found ways for them to be able to have sessions, and it wasn't a burden on them in that way. And we continue to do that as we move along in this transition.
I love it. I love the wholeheartedness around everything that you guys are putting into place, and you're being intentional with how you coordinate and execute on specific things, as the business grows and you continue to adapt the new company as well. So definitely love that. As we wrap up here, thinking about the acquisition, and now you're on the other side 2 years later, what are some things you would rewire your brain or do differently? Like, what are some things you would change about the process that you've gone through?
There was one thing that I said, we made a mistake here inside of the transition. And I'm just going to be transparent because I think it will help listeners, it help other business owners. The tax side of things was the only side that the previous owner, she dealt with the tax side 100% by herself in this particular company that we acquired. We were okay with that. It wasn't that we dealt with a whole lot of tax. We had like a handful of people that we did taxes for, but not many. And we were moving from a handful to 250 plus of taxes, which is a lot. But we had a CPA that's been on our team from day one, and that is his jam. was taxes. And so in the acquisition, again, with our resources and our network and making sure that we kind of plan things out as much as possible, there's some things that you can't plan, as much as possible, he was already committed to come on. Now, when I talked about earlier, we're supposed to close in December, which would have given us a full beginning of the year, getting ready for taxes, moving forward, transitioning things from her name to our name and systems and different things of that nature. Well, closing February 14th meant that we were dead in the middle of tax season, with March 15th being the first for S Corp and partnership taxes being done. That means we had less than a month. Why? Because we couldn't use her system that was under her EIN, her name. We had to transition everything. And with that being said, we didn't get up and go into March 1st, March 2nd. Because remember, no one knew that we were acquiring and everything had been happening. So people were dropping stuff off like normal, expecting it to be done and just like normal. And there was nothing normal about this. What we did in that process of negotiation, sitting down with the previous owner and her husband, our price for taxes was way higher than hers. Remember, this is the only thing that she did. So this was like her money on the side, almost being a small business LLC business owner, right? This is kind of where she made her money. And so she didn't hardly charge anything. And then if you were active military, she charged $0. And so you can only imagine in a close to military town what that looked like. And so they were both adamant that, no, you can't do that. But we had to figure out, how do we meet from where you are and where we are, because our price was so much more. It was probably 3 times more than what her price was. And it was still a competitive price. It's just that it was so much more. So what we did was find a middle pricing ground for taxes. This was my mistake. Now that I'm 2 years in, got through that first tax season by the skin of our teeth, tweaked a lot of things, put some systems and processes in place, tried out those systems and processes, did very well. Some tweaks need to happen for this year. We're ready. We've had some grace with the clients. We've lost some clients. It happens, right? Those things happen. You calculate for those things. We've got new clients in. But the problem is now I need to be back at my regular price. And had I did this day one, we just would have took the hit in the beginning and then would have built from there. But because we didn't do it day one, we've built relationships. These clients know us, we know them. It's just a lot of nuances, again, that come into economics and empathy, right? A lot of things that come into play inside of here that is causing it to be a bigger deal as we raise that price. So I would have, going back, and when I go forward, it's one thing that I've learned in this, and then dealing with a couple of clients this year, my price is my price, period. My price is my price. And understanding the market, I'm not saying you don't discount the market, and all those things are taken into factor, but the market there, although it's a lower income market for the people who live there, it's second homes, golf, and equestrian. So majority of the people that we're doing taxes for could pay, with no problem. And they probably were paying way more than that if they come from somebody else than what our price is. And so that's the biggest thing for me, is understanding your value, understanding what you're bringing. She was a tax preparer. We're bringing a CPA. That in itself is a total difference, because you're going to get, doesn't matter. Yeah, your tax is still going to get prepared, but the level of experience and expertise and the knowledge that comes with that, there's just certain things that a CPA is going to see that a regular tax preparer is not. Nothing wrong with a tax preparer, but your experience and your expertise level gives you a different view of things. And because of that, I could have kept our price the same, and that could have been my argument, right? And discount it where I needed to, but not discount it all the way across the board, and lost a lot of money. We lost a lot of money these last 2 years of trying to keep that up, because then the people that we already had, I'm not going to charge them a high price and then charge somebody else something. And we're right here relatively in the same area. That's a going out of strategy, going out of business strategy, excuse me, because the closeness of people knowing each other and people talking. So I lowered their price, which means I was losing money that I was already getting for years before we acquired. And so we're going through that process now. But that would be my number one. And my number two is having that time with the business owner if you can. Not necessarily
Mhm.
keeping them in the business. I'm glad that she didn't stay, because I think for the employees, it's who do I listen to, or who, who am I going to go to? Who's my loyalty to? I didn't have that problem. But being that she was sick and then she ended up shortly after getting out of the hospital dying, I didn't have that acclimation into the community, acclimation as a business owner to business owner. Some of those things didn't happen, and we've been figuring those things out on our own over the last 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. I love how you can, provide some a retrospective around, what transpired and what happened. And like I said earlier, it's only going to equip you for when you do this the second time, because you will, and you're not going to be afraid at all.
Yes.
You know the call outs, you know the watch outs, you know what to ask, right? So it's only going to be better the second time around. So I'm excited for you guys, and I'm so glad that you came on the podcast today. I hope everyone was able to take a lot of notes, right? And think through that if you want to do an acquisition, one, it's nothing to be afraid about, right? There are resources available to us. You just got to know who to ask and how to ask. But there's always resources available for us.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. And you can start with Google. I'm not saying everything on the internet is, real, but at
Right.
least it gives you some knowledge so that you can go and talk intelligently if you feel like you can. I would now not start a business, but acquire. If I'm just starting out, I would look at acquisition, unless it's, if I've got some cash reserves, savings,
Right.
I work for a business and maybe has some money saved and things of that nature. I would maybe look at an acquisition versus starting from the ground up. I wish I had known this when we first started. We
Yeah.
would have been in a different place. But I thank God, and I love the journey that I've been on at the same time. And so I just wanted to make sure I left that with your listeners, because it's not just for someone who's already in business. It may be what you're looking for is to acquire versus starting up. You just have to do the research to know which one is the best for you and what you're doing.
Bars again. And I 100% agree. I've already told my husband the next company we're acquiring, because
Yeah.
I don't think I have it in me to go through all this again. I don't. I'm not that strong. I'm just gonna say it. I'm just
Been
not.
there, done that, got the t-shirt to prove it.
Exactly. My t-shirt got all kind of holes in it now. It have been washed too many times. So yeah, I love this. I love this conversation. And I love how you were very transparent with your journey. So thank you for sharing that with us. Cherelle, how can our listeners reach out to you? Where can they find you?
Listen, we are on every social platform at My Local CFO. Our website is mylocalcfo.com. I mean, it's the easiest thing ever, right? And then just reach out. If you go to the website, you can definitely fill out a contact form, or hit us up on one of our on the social platform at My Local CFO. And I would love to talk to you if you have a question, if we can help in any way. I always say it doesn't cost to talk. That's the only way you're gonna get knowledge.
Bars again. And on that note, we're going to wrap it on up today. Everyone, thank you for listening to this episode of The Analytical Rewired. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks. Bye.